Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on using AI to automate the moderation of user-generated and third-party media content. My name is Venkatesh Bagaria. I'm a Principal Product Manager with Amazon Rekognition. And today I'm joined by Liam Morrison, who's a Principal Solutions Architect with a media and entertainment business. So let's begin. Let's start by understanding the need for content moderation today. Over the last decade, we have seen a proliferation of user-generated content. People are uploading a lot of images. There are a lot of social media chats. All sorts of media is being generated in massive volumes. There are billions of images, millions of hours of video uploaded every year. And when platforms who host these videos need to manage this, they need to follow certain compliance guidelines where, for example, if the content has hate speech or it contains nudity or any sort of disturbing content or objectionable content, that needs to be removed. Certain compliance guidelines need to be met. Now, this task is very difficult, and typically it's done by using human moderators who are trained in the rules of that particular platform. Now, as you can imagine, at a scale of billions of images or millions of hours of videos, humans can only scale as much. So most of these platforms, they resort to looking at a small amount of content which has either been reported by the users or it's just sampled from the vast amount of content that's coming through. So this problem, of course, is just increasing with the amount of content that is going on. And different sectors of the industry face this problem. Let's look at a few of the common ones. First of all, there's social media, where you can imagine a photo sharing site or a dating site or any kind of chat forums where you can have user uploaded images, you can have comments, reviews. Amongst these, people could be actually uploading all sorts of unsafe or inappropriate content. And this is something that these platforms obviously don't want to surface to other users who might not be looking for this kind of stuff. Then we have broadcast media. Think of all the large broadcasters who generate content for daily viewing. And they purchase a lot of content from different providers, they license content. And since they operate in different geographies across the world, each geography has its own rules, and there are compliance ratings that the content needs to have, for example, TVMA or PG-13. And so different global standards have to be taken care of when you're broadcasting in different parts of the world. And hence this content needs to be reviewed to understand what sort of rating to provide. Does it comply with the standard of a particular region, and so on. Next, we look at marketing and advertising use cases, where a lot of third-party images or podcasts or videos, people might be posting advertising against those. And so one of the areas here is the brands that are advertising want to avoid content that is unsuitable or unsafe for the brand. So if it does not align with the brand values, you probably don't want to place your ad in that video or that podcast. And so that content needs to be reviewed first to understand whether this is suitable or not. Similar thing exists in e-commerce and real estate, where a lot of third-party listings or product listings are there, or home listings are there. And again, here, there's potential for malicious actors to have legal postings. Maybe you're selling something which is not really legal, or it's controversial. Somebody's just posted an unsafe image, and these violate the policies. But again, these platforms need to make sure that it's kept clean for the legitimate users. And lastly, we have gaming, where a lot of chat and banter goes on as people play these games. But sometimes you see behavior such as bullying or people putting hate speech in there, which of course is extremely unwelcome for communities that are there. And so this is something we need to be checking and making sure that the platforms are safe. So this is where AI can help. At this scale, the only way to scale the coverage of reviews is by using a system which combines humans as well as AI systems. how AI can help here is you can use that to review most of the content and then flag a small portion which then humans can review. Now, this helps you reduce the impact on human moderators, and essentially they are only looking at a small section of the content, whereas AI is taking care of some of the broader strokes here. So for example, if some content is really unsafe, AI might be able to filter that out, whereas when it's not very sure, that can be sent to humans. And you can have a 90-95% reduction in the amount of content that actually goes to humans. Now, this, of course, has huge benefits in terms of time saved as well as the cost saved. But really, there's a hidden cost in moderation as well. When human reviewers are subject to looking at disturbing images or disturbing content continuously, that's something that has a psychological impact as well. By using AI, you can filter out some of the worst content automatically, and this also reduces that psychological impact. And the net result of all of this is that you're able to improve safety for your users, as well as for brands that advertise on your platforms. But the whole benefit of this is that you're able to scale and improve the experience. Now, AWS offers multiple AI services which can be used for content moderation. In this webinar, we'll be looking at 3 of these. The first one is Amazon Rekognition, which is an image and video analysis service. Next, we have Amazon Transcribe, which converts speech to text. And finally, we have Amazon Comprehend, which is a natural language processing service. All of these are machine learning-based services, which are pre-trained and in some cases customizable also, as we'll see in the later. So let's look into Amazon Rekognition first. Now, Amazon Rekognition, as I mentioned, is an image and video analysis service, and it has multiple features, which I'll briefly walk through. Amazon Rekognition can recognize different types of objects or scenes. Given an image, it will tell you, for example, it contains a bike or mountains, or it's outdoors, or it contains dogs and cats, and things like that. You can also customize it with something called as custom labels. And we have 2 specific features which are very relevant to the content moderation use cases. One is an API which just does content moderation. And then another one is a text detection feature, which can do OCR. We also have other features which might be of interest, particularly around detecting faces, analyzing them, and comparing and searching faces. And we also have some features around video and detection of PPE. So now let's look at the content moderation API in more detail. So the Rekognition Content Moderation API essentially takes in an image or a video and gives you a hierarchical list of moderation labels on the output. And this list, for any label that you get here, you also get a confidence score between 0 to 100. And as you can see here, we have a 2-level taxonomy here. We have a top-level category and then a second-level category. The reason for this is different customers have different rules, and it's difficult to predict what works for one customer will work for the other. So what we provide is information for you to build granular business rules on your side, where, for example, you could say, in a particular country, swimwear, female swimwear is okay to show, but maybe it's not allowed in a different country. So you can set your own rules based on the information that we provide. And this is why we provide this granular information, so that you can have a lot of flexibility. So we started with the more obvious classes around explicit nudity, suggestive content, violence and weapons, and other kinds of visually disturbing things. But we have also continuously updated these moderation models. And recently, we added 6 new categories and 17 new subcategories, along with continuous accuracy improvements. And these were new classes for things like detecting of drugs, tobacco, alcohol, gambling, hate symbols. So this is based on customer input. We are continuously updating these models. And as a result of this, now we have the broadest and deepest set of moderation labels across most cloud products today, we have 10 categories and 35 subcategories. So you have a lot of flexibility as a customer to try out different tools and have a lot of coverage for different countries. Let us now look at how the actual API request and response looks like. We'll start with how the image API works. So the image API takes in an input which could either be an S3 object, or it could be just bytes. So it's raw bytes. You can just send that directly without storing the image in S3. You can also specify a filtering confidence, a minimum confidence. So for example, if you say the minimum confidence is 70, all the results that we return will have confidence of 70 or above. Now, once this image is submitted to the Detect Moderation Labels API, you get a JSON output where you get moderation labels. Each label has a name, confidence, and also the parent name, which really shows you where it is in the hierarchy. For video, we have a slightly different response and request. This is because video has asynchronous jobs. Given that videos take longer to process, you start a job and then you set up a job ID for that. So we return you a job ID, and then you can set up an SNS topic, a simple notification service topic, which will inform you when the job is done. Once you get that notification, you can use another API to get the results. And you can see the key difference here is, besides being asynchronous, you of course get the timestamp in a video when a certain moderation label was found. And so you can use this to also understand where in the video something is found which is probably objectionable, or where should you go in the video to review it further. The rest of the output is similar. You get confidence, you get a name, and you get a parent name. So with moderation APIs, customers told us, yes, we love your pre-trained APIs. It offers a lot of value for classes that are fairly well known. But some customers also have unique problems where they might be looking for, let's say you're a media company who's looking for a specific logo of a competitor, or a certain logo of a particular sponsor, which is no longer a sponsor. Or you might be operating in a country where there's a very specific object or a particular kind of scene which is not very allowed, but it's not very common. And so you need to be able to define your own labels with your own data. And that's what custom labels allows you to do. Custom labels is an AutoML vision service that allows customized image analysis. You can come in, define your own labels, bring your own data, and very easily train powerful computer vision models with the click of a button. So with custom labels, you get a guided experience. There's a nice UI where you can upload your images, hand label them, and also just walk through the whole model training process. And it's as simple as just clicking a button. So it's very low code to almost no code. And what we have done under the hood is we've created techniques so that if you use some amount of data, it goes a long way. You get a lot of bang for the buck for your training data. And so you use tens to hundreds of images instead of tens of thousands. And as a result of this, when you come back, when the model is trained, you get a fully managed API endpoint that's managed by AWS, and your model is ready to go. And if the model is not up to the mark, you can always come back and add more data and keep iterating on it. So custom labels offers a lot of flexibility for defining your own classes and moderating to your own requirements, when the obvious classes like nudity or violence, those are not the only ones you're looking for. Now, along with custom labels, sometimes there are cases where there's text on the image, which is used for nefarious purposes. And you might have people putting their personal information, or somebody might be just putting a website address to solicit a certain business, and maybe this is not allowed. Or somebody might just be using profanity, using text on the image itself. And so to read this, you can use the text detection API that we have, which is an OCR API. What it does is, given an image, just like the moderation API, it gives you a JSON output where for each area which has text, we'll detect where the text is. We'll give you the bounding box, and we'll also tell you what the text says. Now, once you have this information, you can check this against the list of keywords or profane words or any kind of banned words that you want, and then make some decisions. So now that we have looked at how Amazon Rekognition can be used for moderating images and videos, let's talk about what do we do for audio. And this is where our next service, which is Amazon Transcribe, comes in. Now, Amazon Transcribe is a fully managed speech-to-text service which uses deep learning. And Transcribe has a lot of different features, such as it can identify language of the audio being spoken. It can label which speaker is there. It provides you timestamps and confidence scores. But really, two key features of Transcribe are relevant to content moderation. One is the ability to filter content according to a vocabulary. And the other one is to find personally identifiable information, or PII. And so Transcribe has two modes. You can use it in batch processing mode, where we have 31 languages supported. And here the idea is it's pre-recorded media or audio files, which can be used from S3, and then you can get the transcripts out. Or you could also use live streaming transcription, where we support HTTP2 or WebSocket, and we have 11 languages there. Both these cases, you can apply the features that we discussed. So let's look at the vocabulary filtering feature first. Now here, you can create a list of unwanted words first. So it could be profanity, it could be obscenity, offensive words, curse words, whatever you're looking for. And based on this, you can then create what is called as a vocabulary filter. And then finally, once this is ready, when you run your transcription, you can apply this filter to your transcription. On the output, you have the choice to either mask these words. So in the transcript, if you mask, we'll replace the obscene words or all the filtered words with asterisks, or you could choose to completely remove it from the transcription. And of course, this works for real time as well as stored audio. Similarly, when we look at the PII redaction feature, there are certain types of information in an audio recording or any sort of audio stream that might be classified as PII. These are things like name, social security number, bank account numbers, credit card numbers, and things of that nature. And so Transcribe has a feature which can automatically recognize these things and redact it. And similar to the vocabulary filtering example, in the output, these are automatically redacted if you choose to turn this feature on. And lastly, we have a search-based content moderation. So let's say you are running a platform where a lot of audio transcripts are kept, and you might want to monitor them to understand certain users who have a pattern of abusive behavior, or they're using hate speech continuously. How do you do that retroactively on an archive or a set of audio files? You could just use Transcribe to go through that, convert from speech to text, and then through this text, you can find which of the users actually has that pattern or is saying something which is not really matching your compliance standards. And so you can find them that way. So we talked about Amazon Rekognition, which is for images and videos. We talked about Transcribe, which is for audio. There's also unstructured text, and this is where Amazon Comprehend comes in. Now, Comprehend is a natural language processing service which uses deep learning to analyze unstructured text, and it can give you insights and relationships and information such as the entities, the sentiment of the text, what are the key phrases, what are the key topics. But again, two specific features are very relevant to the content moderation context. One, which is PII redaction. So similar to Transcribe. Now, instead of an audio stream, if you just had text which came from, let's say, a customer support ticket or forum posts or reviews, if you have unstructured text as the input, you can find and redact PII directly from that. You also have a powerful feature very similar to custom labels for text, which is custom classifiers in Amazon Comprehend. So here the idea is very similar to custom labels. instead of images, you bring in documents which contain unsafe text. And this could be, again, things like hate speech or bullying or profanity, anything that you really want to train it with. And you can train the custom classifier and apply it to other text or other documents that are coming in. So now that we have understood how you can use some of this AWS AI services to perform content moderation, let's look at some customer success stories where our customers have been able to gain a lot of benefit by using some of the features we discussed before. So first up, we talk about an example in the photo sharing space, where SmugMug owns and operates two of the largest photo sharing platforms in the world today in SmugMug and Flickr. Now, these platforms have billions of images and hundreds of millions of users. And at this scale, doing content moderation on every image is nearly impossible without AI. So Flickr used our content moderation APIs to go and flag that stuff which was potentially objectionable, and that made it much more manageable for the human moderators. They were also able to classify different images based on ratings. So if certain things had violence, for example, they could make it restricted, where people who want to look at that kind of content could look at it, but other people would be able to filter it out. And so this helped them make their community safer and also match their members' expectation. And so at this scale, AI was absolutely critical to be able to moderate their images. Next, we have a customer in the gaming space, which is Moby Social. Moby Social runs a platform called Omelette Arcade, which is a gaming community. And one of their mottos is to make it a safe space to socialize and share entertaining content. And this is where, again, they have a huge volume with millions of customers. And they needed help from the Rekognition content moderation API, where now they were able to look at the content and reduce their operations load by 95%. So Rekognition flagged only a small percentage of content which was potentially unsafe or inappropriate. And this freed up a lot of the resources for their core business. And next, we have a dating app, Coffee Meets Bagel, which, again, similar to Moby Social, they had a lot of savings in terms of human involvement, which went down by 97%, and their moderation costs went down by 72%. And the use case here was a lot of the profile pictures that are uploaded could potentially have things like nudity or overtly suggestive nature. And so they needed to remove that. And they have been using the moderation API to automate a part of that. And lastly, we have an example in the audio space with Echo 360. Echo 360 is a provider of active and distance learning educational solutions. And here the idea is that to improve the learning experience for students, they're using Amazon Transcribe to transcribe out the lectures and other educational materials so that students can learn later along with the video. And one part of that was to make sure that whatever is the transcript of the lecture, if there's any profanity or any sort of objectionable audio there, they should be able to remove that through Transcribe's content filtering. And so that has been working pretty successfully for Echo 360. So now that we have looked at some customer stories, I would like to hand it over to Liam for some cool demos of the features that we talked about. Over to you, Liam.
Thank you, Venkatesh. So what we're going to go over is we're going to go over several different demonstrations on how these services work. We're going to start in the console, which is a great way to get an understanding of how these services work, how the APIs interact, and feed in some sample information. I'm then going to move into a demo and some open source code that we will share with you that helps you use these services in conjunction with each other. So let's start with Rekognition and specific to the moderation capability. So what you have here is the image moderation API, which is really doing the heavy lifting for the visual content here. And I will upload an image that is an example of potentially moderated content. This could be someone advertising on a social media site, You clearly don't want something like this if you're looking to show, incorporate any type of general audiences. So here you get the API results back. So you get the information that this is a moderation label with 97.466, et cetera, confidence, and also the label of tobacco, so tobacco products and tobacco. What's also worth noting is you also might have words that are also in the same theme as the images. So what you see here is going to the text and image. I will upload the very same image. And what you get is you get the actual information. What's also very helpful from a moderation and a redaction standpoint is you also get the bounding boxes of this word. So if you're looking for the word vape, you can then run it. You have the bounding boxes information of where it is in the image. So this helps for blurring or removing it from the image. So moving into custom labels. So say you have different labels that are generalized. They're more specific to what you do, but they're not in the moderation labels and they're not words. That's where custom labels comes in. So I've actually trained a custom label model on 2 items that are in a video I'm going to show later. They're not necessarily moderated content. What they are is essentially a robotic hand. So let's upload these images here, and a robotic eye. So what you can do is you can process this using custom labels. So I'm running it against the custom labels model. And what I did is I labeled several images with examples of this piece of content. And then I trained a model in custom labels. So I will show a different one, and we will process some videos for custom labels soon and talk about how you might do that. So very similarly, I also have the robotic eye. Again, not exactly moderated content as far as what it is, but depending on what you're looking for, this is really a general purpose use case where you can moderate any type of object that you might have. So now let's move over into transcribe. So transcribe is the speech-to-text ASR service that allows you to transcribe both in batch for videos, which I'll show, but also in real time, which is helpful for, again, the gaming scenarios that Venkatesh mentioned. And what you can do is you can actually filter for offensive words. So I've created an offensive word list, and let's test it in real time, which allows you to see both the real-time streaming capability that transcribe has with the real-time vocabulary filtering. So I will start streaming. So now you will see that it is taking everything I'm saying and transcribing it. I did create a test list of words to filter. So in that, I chose the words test and bad as my offensive words. So obviously these aren't offensive words, but you could use this to use a list of offensive words of any kind for whatever region you're looking for. Also adding concepts that you might want to also remove from your platform. So again, general purpose, but also very specifically tailored to filtering of vocabulary. I mean, we'll show that in a combined use case in a second. So moving on to comprehend, which is the natural language processing and text analytics service. So what you see here is the ability to take any type of text, and this could be text in an image, it could be text from a transcription, and analyze it for things like PII information. So what type of credit card numbers, debit numbers, birth dates, phone numbers. This allows you to analyze your content for any type of PII. Also, it's worth noting there is custom classification and custom entity recognition capabilities. So you can really extend this beyond what PII is here and add even like offensive word lists or classifications of concepts that are just not useful for your platform. So what you see here is the custom or the PII capability within Comprehend. Now I wanted to bring all of this together into something that you can use to process your content, get it all into a searchable format. So what I have here is the Media Insights Engine. So this is a tool that was built. It's a development framework for building applications that are serverless that allow you to process video, images, audio, text on AWS. So this is actually built into two components. There's a backend framework, which is interacted with through REST APIs, invoking functions directly. It is not a GUI. But we do have a reference application on top of the Media Insights Engine that is a graphical user interface that allows you to get a demo experience. It also helps you see how you might change this for your specific moderation use case. So this is two CloudFormation stacks, one for the backend, one for the GUI, that build in takes about 12 to 15 minutes to build. Once you're up and running, you get an email with this serverless UI if you did deploy the reference application. So what you see here is I've uploaded a couple images. I've also uploaded a video. And when you upload a video, it actually processes it through all the different APIs that you choose. Specific to moderation, obviously there is the moderation API that allows you to see exactly how the moderation goes. And you can say, show me all the pieces of content with weapons. So you get the location in the content. This is all just JSON data. But what's interesting here is I am putting all of this into Elasticsearch so you can combine the different use cases. So I just showed the moderation. Now we'll look at how to find the words in this piece of content. It is using Elasticsearch, and there are a lot of words, so it takes a second to get that data. But you can see where in the content that word showed up. So again, if you're looking for the word special, for instance, obviously it's going to be in the credits. So you get every bit of information of where it is. So moving on to speech recognition. So I've also processed this through transcribe and comprehend. I did use the same filter. I had a couple more words that I added to my vocabulary filter that were actually some bad words in this piece of content. But also I blocked the word freaking out. So as you can see, it is detecting it and masking it. You can also choose to have it removed. How you process it is a setting in the API. You're also getting the key phrases, again, if you want to look for other types of moderation or things to look for. Another thing I wanted to show is the custom labels. So I've also extended, again, this is a framework, it's meant to be extended. I've extended it to actually process for custom labels. So here I'm using a different open source video and looking for a specific character. But this could be any type of content that you're looking to actually find in your content. So the logo, for instance, if you, Venkatesh mentioned a logo moderation use case. So these were all done with custom labels. Finally, I wanted to upload some content to show you how you might process it. So I will browse and upload that original image we talked about. And you can configure it to choose what APIs to use and what APIs not to use. Again, this could be converted specifically to a moderation use case, as in it has all of the information that we talked about from transcribe, from Rekognition, and from comprehend. So I'm going to upload this image and look for that. So what you get here is you get the moderation. You also get, well, give it a sec. It is right now invoking step functions, which then processes this piece of content. So it is complete now. So it should have that information. So as you see, tobacco, tobacco products, also the words that you're looking for. I'm going to upload another piece of content and process that as well. And let's see that this is processing. It is kicking off the custom workflow. Let me upload one more. So what you can do here, which is interesting, is you can actually use what you can do here, which is interesting, is you can actually use complex searches, because this is all in Elasticsearch. So I'm just going to put a query in that's looking for a couple different things, which is I'm looking for content moderation of tobacco and a confidence over 80, or maybe I'm also looking for a operator of text and the word vape. And again, this could be a list of multiple different words. So what you see here, which is interesting, I uploaded this piece of content just now. There is no tobacco, but I'm now searching across two different concepts, from Rekognition image to text in image. This also works across any of the APIs. So you could actually say, or if they said tobacco or vape in the audio of the track. So the idea here is combining all of these different APIs into a unified system that allows you to search your content for this type of moderation compliance issues that you can then flag. So with that, this is the repo. It's being updated constantly. Would love feedback, would love to hear how it works and what you're building with it. So definitely thank you for your time today.